Alright, so for the next part, here it wants us to find the domain of each of the following. Well, remember the domain of the parent function, we said in example 1, was going to be from 0 to infinity, right? Which tells us whatever we're taking the logarithm of, well, basically that would mean that another way to write that is x is greater than or equal to 0, right? And so remember, we were looking at log base b of x equals y. So our x is whatever we're taking the logarithm of. So to find your domain, whatever you're taking the logarithm of, you're going to set that greater than or equal to 0. So look at A. What are we taking the log of? The x plus 2. So x plus 2 has to be greater than or equal to 0. And solve for x. Uh-oh. What did I do wrong? No, I didn't do wrong in the problem here. I wrote it wrong up above it. It's not equal to. Good. I just caught that when I was writing it. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's not equal to here. It's only greater than 0, right? Because we said it wasn't equal to 0, because that's my asymptote, isn't it? All right, sorry about that. So then it's got to be, x is going to be greater than negative 2. Now, how would I write that in interval notation? Because that's the way we like to see domain, right? Yeah, negative 2 to infinity. Is negative 2 going to have a parenthesis or a bracket? Parenthesis. And so there's our domain. All right, so let's try B. So what are we taking the log of? So we know that 5 minus x has to be greater than 0. I'm going to move the x over, which means 5 has to be greater than x, or flip it over, so x has to be less than 5. When you flip it, just make sure the original one there, my inequality sign, the point was towards the x, so make sure when you change it, the point is still towards the x. All right, so how would I write x is less than 5 in interval notation? Very good. And 5 is going to have a parenthesis because it's not going to be equal to. All right, and so on C, what are we taking the logarithm of? All right, so we know x squared minus 4 has to be greater than 0. So x squared is greater than 4, but we got that square. What are we going to do? Square root it. It will change the sign on the negative one, okay? So you're going to get your x is greater than 2.
Wait, what do you mean on the negative?
Well, what's the square root of 4? 2 and negative 2. So you're going to get x is greater than 2, and you're going to get x is less than the negative 2. Okay, when you do the negative, switch the sign. And guys, we could go back and we could work this like we did in 3.6. But I'm showing you a little shortcut here. This works every time on it, okay? When you're doing with inequalities, so when you're solving for x, when you take that square root, the positive of it will have the same sign as the problem, and the negative one, you just flip the sign. Works every single time. So how would I write this in interval notation? Well, it just says, think about, if I'm doing my number line, it says x has to be greater than 2. And it says x is less than negative 2, right? Yeah, we're not doing domain, so we're not breaking it into intervals with all of it. We're just looking for what made that true. So where x is, we already wrote the inequality for the first part here. And then we just have this one here, which is from 2 to infinity.